In the clear waters of Pearl Harbor rests the USS Arizona. Once a proud battleship and symbol of American naval strength, now it's a shattered tomb for over 1,000 sailors. More than 80 years after it sank, it remains both a memorial and a warning. But what caused the Arizona to be lost so quickly? Join us as we uncover the events that brought the Arizona to her fiery end. December 7th, 1941. It was a quiet Sunday morning at Pearl Harbor. The sky was a soft blue, and most sailors aboard the USS Arizona were either sleeping in, writing letters home, or enjoying breakfast in the mess hall. The Arizona sat anchored proudly in Battleship Row, her massive guns pointed skyward, a symbol of American naval power in the Pacific. But far beyond the horizon, the storm was already moving in. At dawn, 6 Japanese aircraft carriers floated 230 miles north of Oahu, their decks lined with bombers, torpedo planes, and fighters. The mission: strike without warning, cripple the Pacific Fleet, and buy Japan time to seize territory across the Pacific. Engines roared to life as the first wave of aircraft lifted off. In the sky, they formed into tight formations, flying low over the ocean to avoid detection. At Pearl Harbor, no alarms had sounded. The Arizona's crew had no reason to look up, yet. But on the northern horizon, tiny black specks were growing larger by the second. Commissioned in 1916, the USS Arizona was one of the most powerful battleships of her time. 608 feet long, armored with thick steel plating. She carried 12 14-inch guns, mounted in 4 triple turrets, 22 single 5-inch guns, 4 single 3-inch anti-aircraft guns, and 2 21-inch torpedo tubes. The ship had a range of 8,000 nautical miles at 12 knots, equivalent to about 9,200 miles at 13.8 miles per hour. She saw limited action in World War I, but by 1941 she was stationed in Hawaii as part of the Pacific Fleet, a deterrent to Japan's growing aggression. Her crew of over 1,500 men came from across the United States, farm boys, city kids, and seasoned sailors alike. Life aboard was a mix of discipline, camaraderie, and routine. For the men, she wasn't just a warship, she was a floating home. At 7:02 a.m., less than an hour before the Arizona was hit, a small radar station picked up an unusual formation of aircraft heading toward Oahu. The report was passed along, but dismissed as friendly planes. That simple error meant the warning never reached the harbor in time. In fact, the warning went nowhere. Radar was still new, and few trusted it. The young operator's report reached an officer on duty, Lieutenant Kermit Tyler, who assumed the blip on the screen was a flight of American B-17 bombers expected from California that morning. With no clear procedures in place and no sense of urgency, the warning died there. Less than an hour later, Pearl Harbor was under fire. At 7:55 a.m., the quiet harbor erupted into chaos. Japanese aircraft appeared suddenly over the mountains, their wings catching the morning sun. They came in tight formation, engines screaming, the red rising sun insignia stark against the sky. Moments later, the first bombs began to fall. The Arizona's crew had only seconds to react. Men ran from the mess decks to their battle stations, some still pulling on shirts and boots. Anti-aircraft guns roared to life, their tracers streaking into the sky like burning comets. Across the harbor, massive geysers of water and steel shot into the air as torpedoes slammed into the sides of other battleships. A constant roar of explosions, gunfire, and the whine of diving planes. Thick columns of black smoke rose from burning fuel tanks, blotting out the morning light. The air filled with a sharp metallic tang of hot shrapnel and the choking stench of oil and cordite. Sailors shouted orders through the din, voices barely audible over the relentless attack. What followed was not just an explosion. It was the detonation of the Arizona's forward ammunition magazine. The Japanese armor-piercing bomb, modified for use against ships, penetrated the deck near Turret 2 and ignited over 1 million pounds of gunpowder stored below. The blast was instant and catastrophic, engulfing the forward half of the ship in a massive fireball. The explosion tore the Arizona in half, lifting her out of the water before slamming her back down. In less than 9 minutes, she was gone, sinking into the shallow harbor and taking 1,177 officers and crew with her. Rescue crews pulled the wounded from the harbor, but for most aboard the Arizona, the magazine blast left no chance of survival. Her destruction remains one of the most haunting moments of the Pearl Harbor attack, a single devastating chain reaction that sealed her fate in an instant. Of the 1,512 men aboard, only 335 survived. Many of the dead remain entombed within the ship, their final resting place sealed beneath twisted steel. News of the attack shocked the United States. The next day, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed Congress, calling December 7th,
"a date which will live in infamy."
The sinking of the Arizona became the emotional core of that speech. For Americans, the ship represented more than a naval loss. It was a symbol of sudden tragedy, sacrifice, and the need for unity. Overnight, the nation shifted from peace to war. In the weeks after the attack, the Navy began salvage operations on damaged ships. Many were repaired and returned to service, but the Arizona was beyond saving. Her hull was shattered, her forward section obliterated. Divers recovered bodies where they could, but most were left undisturbed. The ship's superstructure was removed, but her hull was left on the harbor floor. The Arizona would remain where she fell, a grave for her crew. In 1962, the USS Arizona Memorial was dedicated, a gleaming white structure spanning the wreck. Beneath the water, the rusting remains of the ship still bleed small drops of oil, known as the tears of the Arizona. Visitors can look down into the water and see her outline, a silent reminder of the cost of war. Every year, thousands come to pay their respects. Survivors of the attack often chose to have their ashes placed inside the ship, rejoining their fallen shipmates for eternity. But in April 2024, a chapter quietly closed. Lou Conter, the last living survivor of the USS Arizona, passed away at the age of 102. He had been a 20-year-old quartermaster on deck when the first Japanese bombs fell. For decades, Conter returned to Pearl Harbor to share his story, ensuring that the memories of that day would never be forgotten. His death marked the end of an era, but the spirit of those who served on the Arizona remains eternal. More than 80 years after the attack, the ship remains a tangible reminder of that terrible day, but also of courage, sacrifice, and the resilience of a nation. The rusting hull and twisted steel bear the weight of history, a story that refuses to fade. The wreck is carefully protected, not only as a piece of maritime heritage, but as a sacred monument where generations come to pay their respects. Maritime experts and historians work together to preserve the ship, ensuring the memory of its crew will live on for those yet to come. The USS Arizona stands as a symbol of the sacrifices made and the lessons we must never forget. Her presence beneath the waves reminds us that some stories, no matter how heavy, endure in the silence of the ocean. The future of this site lies in preserving its meaning, as a warning, a tribute, and a beacon of remembrance. For as long as the Arizona rests beneath the waves, her story will continue to speak, not only as an echo from the past, but as a timeless monument to courage and sacrifice, deep in the heart of America. The ocean never forgets. And sometimes, it reminds us that even in peace, beneath the surface, stories of courage and sacrifice lie waiting, forever silent, yet never gone. Subscribe to Archive of the Deep for journeys into the depths where history, mystery, and untold stories await discovery.